Okay, Commissioner, you may now begin.
Did he just say okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Good morning. This is the May 24th meeting of the HOC Budget, Finance, and Audit Committee. I'm Rick Nelson, Chair of the committee and Commissioner, and I'm joined by Fran Kelleher, who is also a Commissioner, and the Acting Executive Director, Kayleen Brown, and a host of staff. And we've just been joined by the other commissioner, member of the committee, Jeffrey Merkowitz. So we will now begin. The first order of business is the approval of minutes of the Budget, Finance, and Audit Committee of May 10th, 2022. Do I hear a motion?
I move that we approve the Budget, Finance, and Audit Committee meeting minutes of May 10th, 2022.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Then it is approved unanimously. We will now move to the first item, action item for discussion. Prior year 22 third quarter budget to actual statement. And I will turn this over to Tim Getzinger, the acting CFO, who will introduce staff to make the presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner Nelson, and thank you, staff, for being here. For this first discussion item, the FY22 third quarter budget to actual statement, Tomi Adeba will be presenting. When she hits unmute.
I apologize. Thank you, Tim. As Tim mentioned, I'll be discussing the third quarter budget to actual statements for fiscal year 22. Overall, if we look on page 16, attachment A. Thank you. We can see that the agency ended with a net cash surplus of $4.1 million. This surplus resulted in a third quarter budget to actual positive variance of $2.8 million when compared to the anticipated third quarter net cash flow surplus of $1.2 million. Causes were savings in various expense categories in the general fund, coupled with higher income, which was countered by lower cash flow in some of the unrestricted opportunity housing properties as a result of property performance. On the same page, we can look at the general fund. If you can scroll to the very top, it's the first and second line. Thank you. The general fund ended the quarter with a of $2.8 million, which resulted in a positive variance of $3.7 million when compared to the projected deficit of $6.6 million. Income in the general fund was $716,000 higher than budgeted, primarily the result of receiving additional development fee income for Stewarttown, Westside Shady Grove, Fenton Silver Spring, Alexander House, and Green Hill, coupled with fees received from tax credit properties based on year-end cash flow distribution that was partially offset by delayed commitment fee income and lower drawers on the OHRF for real estate personnel and pre-development cost. The expenses in the general fund were $3 million lower than budgeted, primarily as a result of lapsed salaries and benefits, coupled with savings in professional services, computer software, maintenance contracts, COVID-19 expenses, and transfers to cover the capital project. A portion of these savings is a result of timing issues, and staff does not anticipate the full savings to be realized at year end. For the bonds, there was a positive expense variance in the bond fund as a result of small savings in most administrative accounts within the budget. If moving on to the Opportunity Housing Fund, if we look at page 17, we'll begin with the Development Corporation properties. This chart is broken into unrestricted and restricted properties. The properties with unrestricted net cash flow generated cash flow of $5.7 million, which is $376 million lower than projected. In our review, we determined that the variances were often largely attributed to items such as higher maintenance, utilities, and lower tenant income. This is true with properties such as Magruder's, Montgomery Arms, and Paddington Square. For the second group, properties with restricted net cash flow, this group ended the quarter with $970,000 higher cash flow than budgeted as a result of higher tenant income. The positive cash flow variance was primarily resulting from the RAD 6 due to the receipt of prior period subsidies. If we move on to page 18, we'll look at the opportunity housing properties. Group 1, the properties with unrestricted net cash flow, generated cash flow of approximately $1.25 million, which is $510,000 lower than projected as a result of higher maintenance, utilities, admin costs, coupled with higher vacancies at some of our properties. This was slightly offset by $96,000 of additional cash flow resulting from Georgian Court Affordable, the 3 manors in Shady Grove that were budgeted for only 4 months, but due to a refinancing delay, it resulted in an additional 2 months of operating income and expenses. For the second group of properties, the properties with restricted cash flow for this group was $270,000 lower than budgeted. When looking at the properties, the variances were often attributable to lower tenant income and higher maintenance costs. If we move on to page 18, we'll see the public housing. Public housing received, I'm not sure if we're there. I apologize, page 19, I apologize. Yeah, public housing subsidies, public housing received subsidies for prior period for Victory Haven that were under a master lease, which have now been transferred to the Victory Haven properties. There was also a small amount of expenses.
Can I interrupt for just a
Yes.
moment? What's Victory Haven? I don't remember that one. Where is that property?
I'm gonna.
Commissioner Nelson, that's not one of our properties. A portion of the RAD subsidies, I don't know the specific location of the property, but a portion of the RAD subsidies on Elizabeth House were transferred to Victory Haven.
Okay.
Yeah.
Commissioner Nelson, that's the one that was completed in Damascus maybe about 2 years back.
Yep,
Yeah,
that's the one.
I got it.
Yep.
I got it. I suspected that. Okay, thank
You
you.
can Google too.
No, I didn't Google it. I just, I vaguely remembered that property. Okay.
So as I believe I said, but I'll just restate, there is also a small amount of expenses for Emery Grove totaling $9,563 for continued expenses. For the voucher program, overall, there was a surplus of approximately $1.4 million. The surplus was comprised of an administrative surplus of $1.89 million, countered by HAP payments that exceeded HAP revenues by $430,000. The HAP shortfall will be covered by a draw from the HCVP reserve. Moving on to page 21. Yes. As you can see, several properties have exceeded the annual capital budget because of unplanned capital work. The majority of the properties have sufficient property reserves to cover the overages. Where this is not the case, staff is reviewing the obligations from the Opportunity Housing Property Reserve to ensure sufficient funds are available to cover the balance of the overages. This concludes the presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
I just had one question, I think. Noting a lot of the overages on utilities and wondering, is that increased usage or higher costs for utilities? I don't know if price of gas is going up or other energy costs going up. Is that something that we are experiencing?
Commissioner Merkowitz, I think it's a combination of several factors. Yes, in fact, there has been increased utilization of utilities over the last couple years and higher cost. There's also issues where properties may have experienced some leaks that have resulted in higher water usage that has been resolved or is being resolved. In addition, we have a few properties, and I will turn this over to Nathan, but we do have a few properties where the water is a master lease that is then billed to the tenants. And as tenants are having trouble paying rent, some tenants are also having trouble paying that utility cost. And staff is working to help the tenants find assistance for utility payments in addition to rental payments. I will turn it over to Nathan if he has any additional information to add on that.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Nathan Bovell. I'm the Chief Maintenance Officer, the Acting Director of Property Management. And I will concur with what Terry said. We have had some slight increases in rates. There are some significant increases in usage because people are home. But we also have, particularly with water, experienced several sites where the rate and the cost seems abnormally high. We have been meeting over the past several weeks weekly with WSSC to address those concerns. At some of those properties, we have found that there were some underground water leaks that did not manifest itself inside the tenants' units, but were under the slabs of the building. We're working with WSSC and our contractors to repair those. When that happens, WSSC is working with us to negotiate the cost of that down when we can provide them with sufficient documentation from scopes of work from our contractors. Also, we have been working with WSSC on a number of delinquent accounts with approximately 450 of our customers. And there are a number of organizations that are providing assistance to pay those utility bills, and the property managers and scattered site managers and third-party management companies are working with those customers directly to allow them the opportunity to afford themselves of that assistance.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments related to this item? Okay, then we'll move on to the next, which is the fiscal year 2022 third quarter unaudited financial statement.
Thank you. And for item number 2, Francisco Vega will present. Francisco.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
If we can quickly scroll to page 30, I believe that's more or less where Commissioners can see the numbers that's related to the first part of the memo. Good morning again, Commissioners. The Commissioners' net position increased by $65.3 million, or 28% from fiscal year end June 30th, 2021. And it's attributed primarily to the gain on sale of Shady Grove, Georgian Court, and the 3 Manor properties. The liquidity ratios improved due primarily to an increase in the OHRF current assets, attributed to the proceeds from the sale of Shady Grove Apartments, Georgian Court Apartments, and the 3 Manor properties, partially offset by additional bond draws for HOC at Westside Shady Grove LLC, HOC at Stewarttown LLC, Bauer Park Apartments LP. In June 2021, the current ratio was 1.98, as compared with 2.39 in March of 2022. The quick ratio also increased from 1.85 in June 2021 compared to 2.21 in March of 2022. The total assets, excluding the deferred outflows, increased by $103 million, or 5.5% since June 30th, 2021. The increase in total assets was largely due to the following: net increase in total mortgage and construction loans receivable, primarily attributed to the related multifamily bond fund mortgage receivables on the MHDB 2021 series C&D bond issued for HOC Willow Manor LLC, HOC at Georgian Court LLC, and HOC at Shady Grove LLC, and the Housing Production Fund for HOC at Westside Shady Grove LLC, as well as the Opportunity Housing Fund due to the seller notes provided for these real estate transactions, partially offset by a decrease in the Single Family Bond Fund due to mortgage loan payoffs and prepayments, as well as the scheduled principal amortization under both single family and multifamily bond fund. Also, an increase in unrestricted cash and cash equivalents attributed mainly to the receipt of the settlement proceeds from the Shady Grove Apartments, Georgian Court Apartments, and the Three Manor property real estate transactions. This increase in cash is partially reduced by OHRF disbursements for the repayments of the Bradley Crossing County loans and additional draws for Hillendale pre-development expenses, the payment of the county of the FY22 self-insurance fund contribution, rental license fees, real estate taxes, FY22 OPEB funding contribution, and the timing of the reimbursement of capital expenses from properties under construction. Lastly, a decrease in net capital assets is mainly due to the sale of Shady Grove Apartments, Georgian Court Apartments, and the Three Manor properties, along with normal depreciation of assets for the first 3 quarters of FY22, partially offset by the acquisition of HOC at Avondale LLC. The total liabilities decreased mainly due to a decrease in undrawn mortgage proceeds payable related to HOC at Westside Shady Grove LLC, HOC at Stewarttown LLC, and Bower Park LP, partially offset by bond proceeds not yet drawn for HOC at Shady Grove LLC, HOC at Georgian Court LLC, and HOC Willow Manor LLC. Lastly, on the balance sheet side, there's a decrease in mortgage notes and loans payable due to the payoff of the Three Manor properties, PNC loans, Stewarttown RELOC loan, and scheduled principal amortization of several properties, FFB loans. If we can move down to page 24. Thank you. The commissioner's net income totaled 65.3 million, which is a little lower on the graph. If everyone can see it on my screen, it's pretty large, but if you can see it, that's great. The commissioner's net income totaled 65.3 million as of the 3rd quarter ending March 31st, 2022, compared to the net income of 6.1 million from the same period in FY21. However, after adjusting the net income for the recording of capital contributions, unrealized gain loss on investments, gain loss on sale of assets, and real estate equity transfers, the adjusted net income was 5 million in FY22 as compared to net loss of 1 million in FY21. The overall net increase of 5.1 million, if we can scroll down to the next page, page 25. Great, thank you. Excellent. The overall net increase of 5.1 million in the adjusted net income is largely due or largely driven by an increase in dwelling rental income, mainly due to additional revenue from Bradley Crossing, which was acquired in June of 2021, an increase from RAD 6, Alexander House, and VPC 2, partially reduced by a decrease in revenue due to the sale of Three Manor properties, Shady Grove, Georgian Court, and Stewarttown. Higher HAP income in FY22 compared to FY21, an increase in county grants, a new federal grant for emergency housing vouchers, an increase in management fees and other income, largely from development fees from various real estate transactions. The increase is partially offset by an increase in HAP expense, an increase in leasing and leasing cost, administration expense from Bradley, Paddington, and Westwood, interest expense within the multifamily bond fund, and maintenance expense in the opportunity housing properties. If we can scroll down to page 27, please. Excellent, thank you. Similarly, when revenues from operations for FY22 and FY21 are adjusted for HAP income and unrealized gain loss investments, the adjusted operating revenues increased by 11.7 million from 110.5 million in FY22, 21, to 122.2 million in FY22, largely due to an increase in dwelling rental income and management fees and other income. If we can scroll slightly down to the operating expenses. Excellent, thank you. When the operating expenses in FY22 and FY20 are adjusted for HAP expense, the adjusted operating expense increased by 7 million from 111.7 million in FY21 to 118.7 million in FY22. All expense categories contributed to the increase with the exception of other expenses. That will conclude the presentation on the balance sheet and income statement for this quarter, commissioners.
Does anyone have a question or comment?
I have a comment. I just want to make sure we all realize how well they are doing on HAP utilization improvement over last year in general, that it appears we've come out of the pandemic slump in terms of our issuing of vouchers, and that is great. It helps financially, but more importantly, it shows that more people are getting into housing. And so I just wanted to point out the graph on page 29 shows that there's been significant improvement in that.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, then we'll go to the next item, which is the first quarter budget amendment for calendar year 2022.
Okay, for the budget amendment, item number 3, Terry Fowler will be presenting.
Thank you, Tim. Good morning, commissioners. The calendar year 2022 first quarter budget amendment is for the LP side of the Metro Point Apartments. Each year, property management reviews capital budgets to determine if capital projects that were planned for the year were unable to be completed. And for calendar 21, Metro Point Apartments had projects that were not completed in the amount of $45,002. This capital budget amendment would increase the capital budget for the Metro Point LP from approximately $330,000 to $375,000 and will be funded by property replacement reserves. And I'd be happy to address any questions you may have.
Any questions or comments? Then do I hear a motion to send this forward with our recommendation to the full commission?
I move that we send forward the budget amendment for first quarter 2022 for approval by the full commission.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Then it's unanimous.
Thank you.
The next item is, pardon me, uncollectible tenant accounts receivable.
Thank you. For item number 4, the tenant write-off, Nilu Razigi will be presenting.
Good morning, commissioners. The agency's current policy is to provide for an allowance for any tenant accounts receivable balance which are older than 90 days. On a quarterly basis, the staff also recommend to the commission the write-off uncollectible receivable from past tenants. The proposed write-off for the third quarter of fiscal year 2022 amounted to $127,000, an increase of $78,000 compared to the previous quarter. This period's write-off consists of $116,000 of bad debt from opportunity housing properties, $9,000 from the supportive housing program, and $1,000 from low income tax credit RAD. I'm sorry, my phone. Within the Opportunity Housing portfolio, the $116,000 write-off amounts were primarily attributable to Scattered Sites 1 Development Corporation, MPDU 64, and VPC 1 Corp. The write-offs were mainly due to tenants who skipped or voluntarily vacated their units, tenants who purchased a home, and tenants who left because the units needed to be repaired or renovated. Within the supportive housing program, the $9,000 write-off amount was due to tenants who passed away, tenants who was non-compliance with the program requirement, and tenant who left to live in a nursing home. Within the low income tax credit RAD property, the $1,000 write-off amount was due to tenant who passed away. After the full commission's approval, the write-off will be processed through Yardi's write-off function with the tenant detail placed into the uncollectible accounts receivable database. The next anticipated write-off will be for the fourth quarter of fiscal year 2022, which will cover April 1st to June 30th, 2022. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Any questions or comments?
I guess just generally, you compared it to last quarter, and I'm just curious, like how is the trend line?
I think something just happened. You're muted.
Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Okay.
You were asking about the trend or something.
Yeah, I think I'm getting a message that my connection is unstable, so maybe that was it. Yeah, I was just asking about the trend from a year ago.
Look at page 46, I think. Isn't that the page that gives it to you? Wait a minute, that's the page I was looking at. Ah,
No, go up a little bit.
okay.
Yeah, this property at the top. Yes, it compares it.
Page 45.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the page. I had the same questions there. That's the only reason I knew the answer, because I was looking while she was talking for that.
I did look at it last night, and I guess I forgot that I saw this. Yeah. So it does appear that we're up from a year ago.
The trend is up. A lot of that has to do with timings and the impact of COVID. I would expect that this will continue to rise. I do want to note that one thing that we did add in this packet, and it is on page 47, is what our write-off procedure is. And just because we put this in the write-off on the financial statement, it does not mean that we do not look to try to collect this balance. If you look at number 5, in fact, the last part of the procedure is shipping the balances to a collection company. So just because it goes into the write-off, it doesn't mean that we're not trying to, recoup those funds.
Yeah. And on that, I did note that. Thank you, Tim. I assume we're using a collection company that is engaged in, fair collection practices.
That is correct. Yes.
Okay.
Anything else? Then I need a motion for forwarding this recommendation to join the staff's recommendation that the full commission approve the write-off of uncollectible tenant accounts receivable of $126,942.
So moved.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. The next item are calendar year 2021 audits.
Okay, so item number 5 will be presented by Nikita Patel. Nikita, you are up.
Good morning, everybody. Currently, the HOC is the managing partner in 17 calendar year 2021 tax credit partnership, of which 15 tax credit partnership require calendar year 2021 audit. HOC also has 4 calendar year limited liabilities properties, of which 2 require the audit for 2021. The property audits for 15 calendar year 2021 tax credit partnership and 2 limited liability company audit have been finalized. They have received the standard unqualified audit opinion from the independent certified public accounting firm. And this concludes the presentation of the calendar year 2021 audit. Does anybody have questions?
I would just like to thank you again for bringing forth this information during our meetings, and note that it is extremely impressive to have all of these organizations come through with clean audits. So congratulations, staff.
Thank you.
That's always a good thing.
Absolutely. Next item is the extension of the use of credit facilities.
Okay, and for item number 6, Eugenia Pascal will be presenting.
Good morning, Commissioners. The Commission has previously authorized the use of the PNC 60 million line of credit and the 150 million real estate line of credit for 10 properties and projects, including Montgomery Homes LP 7, Fairfax Court Apartments, Lytonsville at Brookville Road, Lindsay Ford Holding Site for Wheaton Gateway, HOC Fenwick and Second Headquarters, Brook Park Apartments, 64 moderately priced dwelling units, Ambassador Apartments, Avondale Apartments, and Year 15 Litec LLC. Excuse me. The advances from the 2 PNC credit facilities for these projects and properties were used either to fund the property acquisitions, prepay existing mortgages, or to fund pre-development and renovation expenses. The Commission authorization will expire on June 30, 2022. The total amount drawn that are still outstanding for these 10 properties and projects was $38.6 million as of April 30, 2022. The total estimated annual cost is approximately $748,000 based on the contract rate with PNC using LIBOR plus spread. The London Interbank Offered Rate, or LIBOR, is used extensively in the United States and globally as a benchmark or reference rate for a number of different types of financial transactions. In the light of the now certain transition away from LIBOR to alternative replacement rates such as SOFR, or the Secured Overnight Financing Rate, or BSBY, Bloomberg Short-Term Bank Yield Index, HOC staff is continuously working with our financial advisor and financial institutions in this regard, and will present decisions for action to the Commission at a later date. The staff is recommending that the BF&A committee join its recommendation to the full Commission to extend the use of the credit facilities for the above mentioned properties and projects from the current maturity date of June 30, 2022 through June 30, 2023. And that concludes my presentations. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you, Commissioners.
I guess I have a question. We've got 38 million outstanding. If this thing were to go away, we got a problem. And I'm not sure how to frame the question. I'm wondering when is it that these properties are going to go into permanent financing so that we don't need that? And do we need more time in case something were to happen? I mean, I guess I'm really asking, is the year extension enough on these properties alone? Because I don't want to see something happening at some point. We are faced with an issue of $38 million of outstanding indebtedness, short-term indebtedness.
There is there is a transition period, and I believe the transition period is actually, what is it, June 30th, 2023, where there is a LIBOR fallback index that it would automatically transition to that. Some of these items would probably either be automatically transitioned or through refinancing would be transitioned. But we are looking at all of those individually.
But Rick, is your question about the rate transition or if PNC?
No, I was really talking about PNC. I mean, clearly the rate is something we have to track, is to make sure that we are able to accommodate whatever the change in rate is. But I'm concerned about, I guess, technically PNC if somehow, and I'm not sure what our term is with PNC. Do you recall?
Yeah, we have a strong relationship with PNC. Eugenia, do you know when the current relationship, the current contract expires?
I believe it's 2 year, but I need to check.
We just renewed it last year.
Right. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I think it's for 3 years, if I'm not mistaken.
3 years.
It's certainly, as Commissioner Keller said, it was just renewed. And the banking contract and the line of credit, they're all interrelated. When it was all negotiated, though, they're separate agreements, they're all tied together and were negotiated together. So it's not conceivable that PNC would just end one and continue the other.
Then I guess part of my question then would be, why don't these expire at the same time as the underlying banking agreement?
Or the line of credit agreement. I suppose we could extend these through that period because, for example, the Lindsay Ford, obviously that's the Wheaton Gateway transaction. It's not expected to close and be paid back before that date. So perhaps we can extend these to be coterminous with the line of credit end date. And we continue to work on some of the others. Fenwick, for example, we're expecting that to close next year sometime. So that date perhaps is appropriate. What we can do, commissioners, is to go back at some of these individually and look at the dates and determine when they're likely to be repaid, or wholesale extend them to the date that the line of credit expires.
Well, I mean, it just seems to me that rather than taking it to when each individual transaction is going to go into permanent financing, that they all ought to be tied into the expiration of the line of credit. I mean, if it gets paid off before, it gets paid off before. That doesn't affect that date. And it would seem to simplify things as far as presentations like this.
Okay.
Does that make sense, or
Yes.
I'm not?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think it makes sense. I was curious why we just renewed it every year instead of a longer period if needed.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
So when you do that, when you look at that and make a modification prior to the June meeting, or?
Yes.
Okay, so we should have a motion to recommend that we join the staff's recommendation, subject to further analysis of the end date.
Okay.
Is that
So moved.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous.
Thank you,
All right.
Commissioners.
You're quite welcome. And now we're going to have inspection services, and I guess we'll go to Lynn Hayes.
Good morning, Commissioners. Actually, Ali Kadiman is going to present this item.
Okay.
Good morning, Commissioners and HOC staff. My name is Ali Kadamian. I am the Program Coordinator for the Inspections team within the Housing Resources Division. The reason I appear before you all in this committee today is to kindly request a one-year renewal of the existing contract between HOC and our inspection company, Inspections Experts Incorporated. Hereinafter, I'll refer to them as IEI. IEI is an approved woman-owned small business which excels in the performance of inspections both for the federal government as well as the private sector. The Housing Choice Voucher Program requires participants to complete certain inspections in order to ensure that their units are kept in a safe and sanitary condition. In June 2020, HOC signed a 2-year contract with IEI in order to conduct all inspections that are required by HUD, Chapter 26 of the Montgomery County Code, and Chapter 10 of HOC's Administrative Plan. These include initial inspections, annual inspections, and other special or complaint inspections that may be necessary. However, the contract to carry out this vital role is set to expire July 1st of this year. The renewal contract generally contains the same terms as the original agreement signed in 2020, with the exception of a few provisions that we've recently added. And the provisions are as follows: that IEI will use Yardi Voyager for all data entry, that they will conduct quality control inspections, that they will conduct virtual inspections in lieu of in-person inspections if requested by the customer. And of course, this was brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic. And that they will conduct carbon monoxide inspections starting December 27th of this year. And finally, that they will conduct roughly 18,000 initial, annual, special, and QC inspections. I would also like to add that IEI may conduct radon inspections and lead-based paint inspections for buildings built before 1978 and inspections within HOC's portfolio for the supportive housing program within our Resident Services Division. At this time, I'd like to request that this committee join staff's recommendation for HOC to renew the inspection services contract with IEI for 1 year to provide inspections for the Housing Choice Voucher Program and HOC's properties. Thank you very much, and I will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Commissioner Kelleher.
Thank you. I have a question regarding how our contract with this organization relates to properties where we have a property management company responsible for various things as well. Would this organization still be doing the quality and annual inspections? Or do we have some properties that this organization is handling and other properties where the property management company is handling the inspections?
Yes, Commissioner, this contract will entail that they conduct and continue to conduct every inspection for every HOC customer, whether it's in a multifamily property, whether it's one of our properties, or as I mentioned, in other divisions.
Do they have the staffing capacity to maintain that volume of work in your estimation?
That's a good question. They actually recently brought in more staff in the past few months just to handle the voluminous size that HOC delegates to them.
Okay, and then how do we provide oversight to their work in terms of the timeliness and completeness of the inspections?
Well, I suppose some of that falls on my shoulders, but as well, the QC inspections that they will conduct are, in essence, inspections of inspections. That is to make sure that a previous inspection was conducted in compliance with all regulatory requirements.
And is there a feedback loop between complaints that we get from residents to our oversight of this organization? Do we have a systematic way of looking at data to see if there are properties that may need more than just an annual inspection?
Sure. I suppose, well, complaint and special inspections may be requested by both the tenant, the landlord, in certain extreme situations where we believe maybe there's property damage, or if a landlord requests a move-out damage. But to your earlier point, I suppose I am that feedback loop. I am in constant contact with IEI on a daily basis. They report to me, they send inspection results to me, as well as any potential abatements or overdue inspections.
Okay, thank you very much.
And Commissioner Kelleher, again, Nathan Wovell, the Chief Maintenance Officer and Acting Director of Property Management. For the HOC properties that are inspected, we do get detailed reports of those inspections. The Maintenance Division receives failed to detailed reports if a property actually fails an inspection. And so we have an opportunity to go right out after that inspection has been completed to investigate what those failures are for, to make the necessary remediations to fix the failures, and also in some certain circumstances to contest what that failure item was if it's not something that would actually fall into an HQS failure. So we do have an opportunity to go into those inspections, look at them with our staff shortly after they're taken. After the inspections are completed.
Thank you.
I guess sort of following up on that, they were awarded the contract in 2020, and of course, we've been faced with COVID for that period of time. So I'm assuming that they have not performed in the same manner as we envisioned in 2020 or when we did the RFP. And I guess I'd be interested in hearing an assessment of how they in fact performed during that 2-year period, recognizing the difficulties imposed by COVID.
Yes, Commissioner. So IEI performs virtual inspections by default. They show up at the customers' or residents' houses, and they connect with either the tenant or the landlord via video app, whether it's Google Duo or FaceTime with Apple. And the tenant or landlord, whoever's in the unit, will literally show them everything that the inspector is asking for. So again, every inspection is done by default virtual, and if they request it, they can be done in person as well.
Additionally, I think a lot of the landlords during the pandemic were able to self-certify unit condition, which was one of the COVID waivers that we adopted. So we anticipate a lot more in-person inspections, and we will monitor and assess and determine how this contract is working and overall performance, including complaint inspections and complaints and looking for trends and actions to take if identified. But a lot of the inspections again were self-certifications from owners, which those units must be inspected by June 30th of this year in person. So we're kind of figuring it out, Commissioner Nelson, and as we're getting our feet wet and learning this contractor.
I think what you just said scares me. We've had a lot of self-certifications. I don't know what a lot means in view of our total inventory. And whatever those self-certifications were, have to be inspected within the next 35 days or however many days is between now and June 30.
Correct.
Is it possible to do that?
Yes, they are on target with meeting that deadline. We met with them. We've had 2 meetings with IEI since they've come under this division. The last meeting was on May 20th, and yes, they are on target in meeting that goal, that responsibility.
The one thing we all want to avoid is some audit finding that we missed the date, or some HUD finding that we missed the dates and all that follows from that.
Yes, we certainly do. Yes, we do.
The other thing, just to confirm, these inspections are just of the HUD funded, voucher funded properties. Is that correct? Or units?
It's both. So the contract covers the voucher program, But additionally, the contract covers radon testing for units within HOC's portfolio and also the supportive housing program.
And I guess the other question I have, I'm not clear how we do this. How are our market rate units inspected and when and by whom?
Nathan, do you want to answer that? Are you referring to the market rate outside within HOC's portfolio, not the voucher program?
I'm referring to market rate within HOC's portfolio that are not vouchered.
I'm going to defer to Nathan.
Yeah.
And does this company cover HOC-owned properties or just the voucher properties?
There's a provision in this contract to inspect any of the properties within HOC's portfolio, regardless of whether or not it's subsidized or not.
And I would just add that most of the multifamily properties are insured under the FHA risk share program, and they're all subject to REAC inspections as well, which is separate and apart from what we're discussing here.
And Chapter 26.
But I guess I hear that, but I haven't heard that, yes, in fact, this firm does those inspections.
Not the REAC inspections. There's a separate inspection company that handles these.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, it handles the REAC inspections.
All right. And this firm does Chapter 26 inspections as well. And I know this is a sore subject for me because I don't understand HUD, but hey, I've never having dealt with them for 50 years. Have we looked at and rationalized any continuing differences between 26 and the HQS?
Yes, I think at one point we were working to adopt those same standards.
Right.
So we're consistent with the county. I'm not sure, you know, why we did not or where it ended, but that's something that we'll continue to pursue.
My understanding was HUD did not approve our waiver request to use the county standards.
Okay.
All right.
Yes. I believe that came through the administrative committee at one point, and that's what I recall.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. I would just say that I think we need to be realistic that if there have been a lot of self-certifications and video inspections, once we start the in-person again, which I think we need to be doing, we're going to find stuff that didn't get picked up, and especially exterior things. Some, you know, roof issues, windows that aren't fitting right, screens missing, pest control, a lot of issues like that, that a video inside a unit may not have been designed even to pick up. So I think we should, in terms of our budgeting for this coming year, realize we may have some additional work to do as a result of the pandemic approach to inspections, which was necessary for everyone's health at the time, but more may be necessary in person for everyone's health going forward.
I think Commissioner Kelleher, we did consider that, and for that reason, we increased the number of inspections as well, because we anticipate more re-inspections. Also, there was an uptick in no-shows during the pandemic as well.
Thank you.
Sure.
And did those virtuals include exterior virtuals?
Yes.
Or did we do in-person virtual? I mean, in-person exteriors.
The remote videos do include exterior and interior of the unit.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments? Then do I have a motion for joining the staff's recommendation to renew the inspection services contract?
I move that we join staff's recommendation to the full commission that we renew the inspection contract with Inspection Services or Inspection Experts Incorporated.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Then it's
Aye.
unanimous. I would also remind staff that is this the last year of the, I guess they have one more optional renewal.
Yes, that's correct.
I would hope that we consider the 1-year renewal earlier than 1 month prior to the expiration of the contract.
Yes, Commissioner.
This is an issue that we have in a number of cases. I mean, there's not to suggest that we disagree with the staff's recommendation, but when we get it this late, there's no room for anything. So please mark your calendars appropriately.
Will do.
Will do.
Next item is procurement of property management services.
Again, good morning, Chairman Nelson, board, guests, and staff. My name is Nathan Bovell. I am the Chief Maintenance Officer and the Acting Director of Property Management. We are coming before you today to request that you consider the renewal of several property management contracts. Right now, these are for Alexander House Development Corporation, Diamond Square Development Corporation, Brookside Glen Development Corporation, Glenmont Crossing Development Corporation, Glenmont Westerly Development Corporation, Wheaton Metro Development Corporation, and the Oaks at Four Corners Development Corporations. These entities are managed by several different property managers, and asset manager Jay Berkowitz will be presenting the request for these renewals.
They have the wrong memo up. So they need to go to either the prior one or the next one for the development corp properties. What's on the screen is the wrong one.
It's prior.
It's prior. Thank you, Terry.
So page 57.
Yes.
Thank you. Jay Berkowitz, asset manager for Property Management Division. In accordance with Appendix 4, the Housing Opportunities Commission of Montgomery County's procurement policy of June 7th, 2017, staff is submitting management contracts to the Budget, Finance, and Audit Committee in support of staff's recommendation to the Commission for renewal of these property management contracts. The following table identifies the affected properties and provides property information, including the current property management company, annual renewal contract cost, current contract end date, proposed renewal date, and start and end date and contract terms remaining. Can you go down to the next page, please? The submittal, can you go up to the very top? Thank you. The submittal includes contracts for 7 properties managed by 3 different management companies. These companies include Bizzuto, Edgewood Management, Residential One. These companies have provided property management services to HOC over several years. Their history with HOC is as follows. The chart below provides some general information regarding the 7 properties that are included in this renewal submission. It lists affordable units, AMI restrictions, current occupancy, and the latest REACT score. Can you go down further? Yes, and there's a property summary for each property that's listed in the chart above in the following pages. Can you go to page 3, please? Can you go further down? Thank you. The renewal of the property management contracts will not have a budget impact as the costs associated with the services are included in the property budgets. Additionally, the contracts will be performance-based, so fees will be lower if revenue declines below budgeted expectations or if a property receives less than 80 on a REACT inspection. Staff requests that the Development Corporation Board of Directors join its recommendation to the commission that the commission approve the property management contract renewal with Edgewood for Alexander House, Oaks at Four Corners, Brookside Glen, Glenmont Crossing, Glenmont Westerly, and Diamond Square with Residential 1, and Wheaton Metro with Bizzuto. Are there any questions?
Any questions or comments? Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Seconded?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Then it's unanimously approved. I'd just like to suggest that we need to work with staff in terms of the presentation of the material the next time this comes up, because I think there's some holes in the presentation that we need to look at to be more complete in the analysis of performance. And repeating my comment about the dates, we need to tighten up how and when we submit these requests to the commission for approval. The next item is, I guess, same thing, right? Am I correct?
That's correct, Commissioner.
Yeah, procurement of property management services for cider mill. Well, there they are.
Different
Right.
properties.
Yeah, these are slightly different in that they're not
Yes, they are.
they're not development corporations.
Right.
But again, we're coming forward to the board to request the renewal of the contracts. These contracts are for Alexander House, Cider Mill Apartments, Stewarttown, Westwood Homes, and Fenton Silver Spring and Wheaton Metro. And again, Jay Berkowitz will be presenting these requests.
Thank you, Nathan. In accordance with Appendix 4, the Housing Opportunities Commission of Montgomery County's procurement policy of June 7th, 2017, staff is submitting management contracts to the Budget, Finance, and Audit Committee in support of staff's recommendation to the Commission for renewal of management contracts for Cider Mill Apartments, Forest Oak Towers, Georgian Court, Green Hill Apartments, Stewarttown Homes, Westwood Towers, and Fenton Silver Spring. The following table identifies the affected properties and provides property information, including current property management company, annual contract cost, current contract end date, proposed renewal date, and end date and contract terms remaining. This submittal includes contracts for 7 properties managed by 4 different management companies. Those companies include Capri, Edgewood Management, Grady Management, and Habitat America. These companies have provided property management services to HOC over several years. Their history with HOC is as follows. The next chart provides general information regarding the 7 properties that are included in this renewal submission, including AMI restrictions, current occupancy, and latest REACT score. And can you go to page 4, please? The renewal of the property management contracts will not have an adverse impact for the FY23 operating budget. The costs associated with the services are included in the property budgets, which are presented for approval with the agency's budget on June 8th, 2022. Additionally, the contracts will be performance-based, so fees will be lower in the event revenues decline below budgeted expectations, or if a property receives less than 80 on a REACT inspection. HOC is currently considering implementing up to a 2% reduction in the management fee for Grady Management because of the decreased REACT score for Cider Mill Apartments in accordance with the terms of the existing contract. Staff recommends that the Budget, Finance, and Audit Committee join staff's recommendation to the Commission to approve the renewal of the property management services contract with the respective management companies herefore discussed for Cider Mill Apartments, Forest Oak Towers, Georgian Court, Green Hill Apartments, Stewarttown Homes, Westwood Towers, Alexander House for 1 year through June 30th, 2023, and for Fenton Silver Spring through August 9th, 2023. Are there any questions?
I have a question. Do we have some kind of a corrective action plan with the cider mill property? Given that score, I would not
Yes.
want to approve a contract renewal for a company with a score that low unless we had a very carefully crafted oversight and improvement plan.
Thank you
Yes.
for those comments,
Nathan.
Commissioner Kelleher. We do have a plan. One of the things I would like to state is that part of that score is a result of how HUD REACT inspections are scored. A large portion of that score was due to a failure and deficiencies of the site itself. Those include issues with the roofs, but most particularly HUD cited the mansard roofs, which are the shingled roofs on the sides of the building. They are deteriorated. There is a plan to have them replaced, but they don't actually affect the functionality of the roof itself or water infiltration into the tenants' units, but they failed the site. And once you fail the site, it's a little bit difficult to get a score that's going to be acceptable. So we are going to
That's
also
something that Grady should have caught in advance, or I guess I'm trying to understand the extent to which the score is a reflection on Grady's performance versus
Ours.
yeah.
Well, I think it's some of it is on Grady, some of it is on us, and some of it is on the way HUD does their scoring. But there is a plan. There's a current IFB out to replace all of the mansard roofs, which are the shingled parts of the roofing system. We also have a RFP out to replace the most damaged flat roofs on that site. And that's been brought before the board because of the cost of the flat roofs. The shingled roofs, the RFP is currently out, and we expect to have those repairs made over the next several months.
Thank you.
I guess the
Oh, and one other thing, I'm sorry, Commissioner Relson, is we are going to have some discussions with them. There is a clause in their contract that if their scores fall below a certain point, that we can take a 2% reduction in the management fee. So we're going to be having some discussions with Grady Management about how we implement that clause.
Well, I guess this presents a number of different issues, in which I'm sure are very challenging to both the staff and to Grady Management. I mean, this is what the largest development that HOC owns. It is also difficult to manage property because of site and building and all those issues. This issue on the roofs, we never heard that when we talked about replacing all the flat roofs. So it seems that maybe we could have done better in terms of our own staff analysis of the properties. I guess what I'm suggesting is that we need a staff plan to ensure that we pay some increased attention to cider mill. We're coming out of COVID, which presents its own set of unique circumstances. And as Commissioner Kelleher indicated, we're probably going to discover in all of our properties some stuff that we hadn't seen in the last 2 years that we just couldn't because of COVID. I think we need to have a plan that really focuses some considerable staff attention on the variety of issues that are faced with the cider mill development. And I think we ought to get some periodic report backs from the staff on that property, because it's an important property. I think we've done a lot in terms of helping the entire neighborhood, but sometimes a lot isn't enough. So we just need to, I think, put some more resources, both human and otherwise, into the property.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, Commissioner
Yeah.
Nelson.
And I would just add, commissioners, that a number of divisions of HSC have been engaged in discussions on different levels with members at Cytomel, and we're going to continue to do that. And also, once our property management area is staffed up to the levels that we need it to be, to take your suggestion very seriously and refocus property management staff on Cytomel, because yes, we do agree with you that it is an important asset, and it is large, our largest. And one of the, when we acquired the property, we knew that it was, a 10-year period before we talked about any redevelopment of the site. And so while we are holding it, we need to ensure that the 864 households that are there are taken care of. And that is our commitment to the property and the community. So among the property management, property maintenance, real estate, resident services, we're committed to engage with the community and re-engage, as we're coming out of the pandemic, and ensure that we're paying attention and focused on the physical aspects, the financial aspect, as well as the people aspect of Cytomel. And so Nathan and I and others in HSC will ensure that that happens and figure out a reporting mechanism to the commission.
Okay, good. Any other questions or comments? Do I have a motion?
So move. Sorry, I move that we join staff's recommendation to approve the renewal of the property management services contracts to Forest Oak Towers, Fenton Silver Springs, Cider Mills Apartments, Green Hill Apartments, Westwood Towers, Georgian Court, and Stewart Town Homes.
Okay.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And it's approved unanimously.
Thank you, commissioners.
You're welcome. The next item is property management services for Elizabeth House 3. I'm not sure who's taking that. Is that Marcus or Zach? Or
I think it's Marcus.
Yes.
Marcus,
Yes.
are you on?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Good.
All right.
Yes, and please remember that that page error that
Yes.
I made. Thank you.
Slide 5, no problem. I got it. Good morning, commissioners. Marcus Irvin, Director of Development. I'm here to present approval to procure property management services for Elizabeth House 3. Next slide. Sorry, next one. Okay, so on April 22nd, 2022, HOC issued a request for proposal number 2323, soliciting responses from qualified property management firms with the focus on leasing up and achieving stabilized occupancy by October of 23 for HOC's under construction Elizabeth House 3 development. The nearly $180 million mixed-use 267 unit age-restricted development is built upon the 120,000 square foot state-of-the-art Montgomery County Recreation Aquatics facility, as well as a Holy Cross facility. First unit deliveries are still tracking for August of 22, with the recreational center following shortly thereafter. Staff received 4 proposals total on May 16th from both local and national property management companies, including Daring Property Management, Edgewood Vantage, Habitat America, and Mellon Property Management. The proposals were scored against several criteria, which are shown in later in the presentation, including responsiveness to the RFP, experience and qualifications, MFD designation, management fee and vendor costs, past performance, and also customer satisfaction. After review of those proposals, staff recommends that the commission authorize the acting executive director to negotiate and execute a property management agreement with Habitat America. As we'll go through the presentation, Habitat America offers valued experience and management services for market rate and affordable multifamily apartment communities. Over 55% of their portfolio is comprised of senior communities similar to Elizabeth House 3. Habitat America is also committed to provide the highest standard of service in every aspect of property operations, including lease-up stabilization, accounting, marketing, and compliance. And the management firm has more than 30 years of mid-Atlantic experience in this realm. And to further marketing efforts of the community, Habitat was the sole respondent to provide a detailed, I'll say, marketing and management plan beginning from notice of award through lease up to ensure success of the development. Next slide. This just breaks down the criteria from the scoring for a total of 100 points. It was broken down into 6 areas. And once again, just due to the complex and unique nature of the various income restrictions and funding programs, the RFP did require this comprehensive approach for developing effective marketing and pre-leasing activities for those units, along with just the ongoing management, maintaining of the units, service calls, and things to keep our residents happy. Criteria included responsiveness to the RFP, experience and qualifications of key executive and on-site staff, experience with managing affordable mixed income, low-income housing tax credit properties, Class A properties, age restricted, and also experience with working with the nonprofit sector and similar governmental agencies. There's also a section in there for MFD designation and working with MFD subcontractors, the management fee and vendor costs, which are shown later. Also past performance included by residents and also other owners, and then customer satisfaction and survey. Next slide. This slide just provides a summary of the respondents and their respective scores. Starting first with Darren Property Management based out of Bethesda. Their total score was 10.25. This was just a result of the respondent failing to adequately provide the requested information as outlined in the RFP. Second was Edgewood Property Management based out of Gaithersburg, which HOC has maintained a partnership for nearly 20 plus years for several properties in HOC's portfolio. Their current managed portfolio consists of about 189 properties. As far as the Southeast through the Northeast, over 20,000 units. Properties include tax credit, senior and family communities. Staffing includes several property managers and professionals with nearly 20 plus years of experience in that area. Habitat America is a certified women-owned business enterprise, nearly 30 years experience, well-versed in the area of affordable and tax credit senior family communities throughout the DMV. They've worked with similar nonprofits and governmental agencies. They're currently managing the in-place renovation for the 3 Willow Manor properties, and they're doing a good job with that. Habitat's current portfolio consists of about 105 properties, nearly 9,700 units throughout Maryland, Virginia, PA, and Delaware and DC. As outlined earlier, they were the sole firm to provide a detailed marketing and management plan to address the direct marketing of this property, including the target market, who is our target market, our competitors in the local market, and also specific activities that they would undertake beginning from day 1 of award through the various building delivery milestones, of which the first one is going to be the unit deliveries tracking for August. So they're ready to hit the ground running. The last firm, Mellon Property Management, relatively newer firm, minority women-owned business, approximately 18 years experience in serving properties in Maryland, Virginia, Arizona, and Texas. While they did provide a management plan, the company was comparably smaller and less diverse within these areas identified for the other companies. They only had 1 senior property manager identified in their proposal, which was the owner of the company, and we're missing other key personnel staffing resources in their proposal. Their score is missing here, but I will correct it for the final. They came in at 47.5 out of 100 points for their total score. So we'll update this table. It just got cut off at the end. Next slide, please. This is just a breakdown of the fee comparison. Habitat and Edgewood, very close to one another, approximately $44 to $49 per unit per month for about a total of about $156,000, of which would be carried in the property budget, which we outlined at the summary and recommendations. Darren Property Management, which was non-responsive, just provided a flat management fee, and then Mellon provided a fee structure of the greater of 1% of annual revenue. However, no other details were provided. Next slide. Just a summary on Habitat. They're proposing staff's proposing a 2-year management contract with Habitat with 2 1-year renewals in accordance with HOC's procurement policy. Once again, they're founded in 1988, headquartered in nearby Annapolis. They're minority, women-owned property management company with a focus on senior housing. Some of their partners include ones who've developed in Montgomery County and surrounding, including Victory Housing, Somerset Development, Homes for America, GetGo, and a whole host of other private nonprofit developers. Their additional strengths, once again, about 81 properties in their past and current portfolio are new construction communities, similar to Elizabeth House 3, that they've managed from inception and continue to manage. 34 additional past and current communities are older communities that were acquired by developers and owners and renovated using tax credits, which is one of the funding streams for EH3, Elizabeth House 3. The key personnel and executives, over 20 plus years experience in all the areas identified previously. They have experience using HOC Yardi and are willing to use Yardi in managing this property. And they also maintain a strong resident relations that's currently managing 4 senior communities. As mentioned, the Willow Manor properties under renovation and Forest Oak Towers. Next slide. So does the issues for consideration, does the Budget, Finance, and Audit Committee wish to join staff's recommendation to the full commission to grant its authorization to award the property management services contract to Habitat America, LLC for the management of Elizabeth House 3? Budget impact, there will be no impact on the commission's FY23 operating budget. The proposed fee is equal to the greater of 3.5% gross rent collected or $49 per unit per month, which would be factored into the property's budget, which is expected to begin deliveries in August of 22. Management fees will be incorporated into the calendar year 22 and 23 operating budgets, which will be presented to the commission for approval at a later date. This time I'll take any questions you may have. Thank you.
Rick, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. One question I have is on the scoring for Habitat. How come they only got 11 points for past performance? I mean, you described their performance with 81 properties, even with us. It seems that their performance would score higher than that. Is there something we're missing?
Let me just go back, see. Past performance, score 5 out of 20. Yeah, I mean, I can go back and look at specifically, but this was out of, 20 points. Yeah, I can go back to see specifically, but between the two firms, both of them were scored fairly close. So this is sort of representative of not only what was provided in the proposal, but each property has subtle nuances with specific just asset management functions of the property.
I understand they're both close, and I'm not trying to draw a distinction between them, but the past performance is a relatively important area for consideration. And to get 11 out of 20 or 12 out of 20 points is not the greatest. I think there's, for some reason, that category was scored low. The other question I guess that I have is, when is, we're going to start occupancy in the summer. When will the building be finished and ready for full occupancy?
Yeah, so time-wise, okay, Marie's face. Yeah, we're still tracking deliveries for in August. I believe October is probably around the time when we'd probably be fully finished. So with the delivery approach, the thought is that the team would begin doing a lot of the pre-leasing activities now as we get further dates where we can actually do hard hat tours and actually bring people through the model unit. We'd be able to sort of pick up that leasing velocity. But as of right now with it, we're still tracking this August date. We're working units from sort of the lower floors up. So it's a moving target that we're just continuing to track. Habitat once again just outlining their plan, starting from notice of award through at least that first period, just to at least begin building up that interest list and tenants for those early leases. So we'll just have to continue to work through it on a day-to-day basis.
And what's our anticipation of the number of family or individuals moving from the current Elizabeth House?
See, I'm going to defer to asset manager. Do you have the number of folks at this time? Just approximate. And if not, we can, I can.
I think there are about 60 or so.
Yeah, I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah.
Hold on 1 second.
While you're looking that up, I will add a question about how does the timing of our units coordinate with the timing of the county's recreation and swim center that will be in the lower levels of the building?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned to Commissioner Nelson, that I think that the timing of the commercial areas, the lobby areas, we'll just have to continue to have the discussions with the general contractor and the team to just see the turnover of that plus the elevators. Obviously, we want the schedules to align. So as the units become available in August, the thought is that we would be able to begin shuttling people through those areas for the delivery of those units. But I can include a better articulated timeline just in terms of that and the executive summary, just to frame that for you.
I'm hoping that we're at least coordinating information with the county on their plans for their opening and our plans for ours.
Yeah.
Maybe by the full commission meeting, you can have a little bit of information about that.
Yeah, and Commissioner Keller, we're also planning a tour of the property on Friday just to get an assessment of where things are. So we'll try to cover those points as well.
Great.
And we're also thinking through whether there should be a joint celebration by HOC and the county. So we'll have those conversations and also with you all to figure things out. But we'll definitely have better information for discussion and inclusion in the packet for you.
Okay, back to Rick's question.
And there are 55 units still to move from Elizabeth House currently.
And how many units do we have in E3?
267.
And how have we looked at the occupancy of the residences on the lane in terms of how long it's taken and how that might or might not transfer to the experience that we're anticipating with Elizabeth House?
Yeah, I think there are two, and Jay, feel free to jump in, but they're sort of two separate submarkets. Habitat has identified at least who our competitors are directly in the Silver Spring market. They've identified sort of who our target market is in terms of the older generation that is looking to downsize and have amenities directly there. So I think between the two projects, the attraction of having a rec center literally at your doorstep, all the fitness amenities, being proximate to transit, all those things will bode well with those future residents versus Rockville, which we do have stellar amenities, but not the same level of activity that we would at Elizabeth House. So we would expect that we would, be able to lease up at a fairly good clip, just given where the property is at. But
and is that factored into the contract with the management company in terms of what we anticipate? I mean, you're anticipating stabilization in October 23, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So
go ahead.
And I was going to say, so part of the marketing plan once we get to actually negotiate an agreement would be, a final budget, any startup and leasing expenses, a lease up schedule, all that to meet what the project needs in terms of the tax credit delivery.
The last thing.
Wait, if I could just add with regards to leasing of the building, there are more subsidies available at Elizabeth House than the 55. So although there are 55 people moving over, there are 108 subsidies. So those can be filled up fairly quickly.
Okay. The other thing I would say is, and I think maybe we ought to think about talking of first unit deliveries in late summer, or, I mean, because August really seems, I think, problematic in view of everything. I mean, you're just getting started with a contract for management. You got the issues with when we can or can't have access. I'd rather us, at least at this early point, talk about
Fall.
in more general terms, and it's great to beat the general terms as opposed to saying August and then we don't start unit delivery until September. So let's think about that.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions? Then
I'm
do
very
I.
excited to see that we are at this point. When I first joined the commission, there were so many meetings about Elizabeth 1, Elizabeth 2, Elizabeth 3. It seemed like all we talked about were Elizabeth numbers. And it's very exciting to be at the point where this building is getting ready for people to move in. So congratulations, folks.
And then we'll talk about Elizabeth 4.
Yeah.
That's next. Okay, let's get a motion.
I move that we approve, or that we recommend to the full commission that they approve a contract with Habitat for management services for Elizabeth 3.
Second.
Is it all in favor? Say aye.
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 It is unanimous, and you go forth and do good things, and we all look forward to Elizabeth Square, Elizabeth House, and the Shrek, and all that stuff. It's really an exciting time.
And especially picking a name.
You know,
That's
yes.
exciting
Well,
part.
I joined Fran though in personally, it's just great to be able to see stuff that you can put a ribbon around and know that it's complete, particularly as you've begun conversations at a point that you hadn't even dug dirt. It's not everybody who can see these things through completion, but HOC has moved with such speed and so many different areas. It's really commendable. So thanks
Especially with
to
such
staff.
an interesting partnership arrangement between private developers, ourselves, and the county, which made everything at least 3 times more complicated to achieve, and yet you persevered, and now we're here, and this is very exciting.
Good. Okay, anything else? Then go forth, do good work, and no more business. The meeting will be adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners.
Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.